It's an At the Office edition of the East Bank Sports Show, serving up the hottest sports takes from right here in Cleveland, Ohio. It's your hosts, Noah, John, and Erik.
Welcome back into the East Bank Sports Show, Office Edition. However, today we have a new format, and this is not my job. John, take it away, man.
Yeah, too bad I don't have a mute button. Welcome to the East Bank Sports Show at the Office Edition. It is the same group of guys, but we are trying a new format. I will be your host this evening, and I am joined by Erik and Noah. That means I make the rules. I hold the power. I am Michael Jackson. They are Tito and Jermaine. And in case you're wondering, yes, the power has gone directly to my head. If you don't get that reference, I feel bad for you. Before we get into it, we got a great show for you today, but let's get it kicked off with some introductions. Why don't you say hi to the folks, Noah? How you doing?
What's up, man? It feels weird being on this side of it, considering I normally do the host duties over here and on Mondays with the East Bank Sports Show with my boy, Matt. But it's a good day here in Cleveland. Some nice weather. It was some bad weather earlier, but nice day out. Got a good workout in and ready to talk some sports, man. Let's get into it.
Love to hear it, my man. Love the energy, too. E, how you doing?
I'm doing well. You know, the Stanford prison experiment taught us that power corrupts absolutely, and it's already happened to you. But other than that, I'm good. I'm ready to go.
You think it's bad? Now we're only 2 minutes in. Before we get started, I want to thank everybody for watching live or streaming wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, follow the Fanatical Elves Network on social, download us if you're listening via podcast. Helps us grow, and we thank you in advance for your support. But with that said, the housekeeping out of the way, we got a great lineup for you today. We're going to get into sports records, talking about athletes' roles in the community and in our lives and in society, which sports league is king. But to get it started in our traditional fashion, we're going to do our 30-second takes. So Noah, since you still have behind-the-scenes power, I'll let you pull up the timer. To get us kicked off, let's do 30 seconds on your favorite obscure athlete. Erik, why don't you get us started off for this one? Noah, once you have the timer up, we can roll.
All right. So favorite obscure athlete, it's got to be Gertrude Ederle. Most people probably don't know who that is. She was a swimmer in the 1920s, but she was the first female to swim the English Channel. And she did it in record-breaking time. Her record wouldn't be broke for like 26 years. So she was a woman that said, when somebody tells me I cannot do something, that's when I do it. And she's just one of those inspirational figures that I love. Very obscure.
That is obscure, but I do know the name. That's a good one. And you hit your time. Noah.
I'll never be muted again, ever.
Real quick, I was really hoping he'd go over so that way I could still have the power of muting him and being like, actually, you can't talk anymore. So anyway.
You will never have that satisfaction again, my friend.
I don't know about all that, but I'm ready to go, John, if you're ready for me to go.
Let's do it. Pop the timer up. You're not going to mute yourself, so maybe we just leave it off and you give us your 30-second take.
I'll mute myself, I promise. I'll go into this really quickly. There was a basketball player during a dark time of the Cleveland Cavaliers named Jared Jack. If you guys remember who Jared Jack is, he was with the Warriors and everything. And I loved him when I was younger, not super young, younger, because he wore KD6s, one of my favorite shoes. So I want to shout out my favorite bench Cavalier, Jared Jack. Also shout out JT Barrett. He's not super obscure, but not a big name unless you're into college sports.
Very nice, though. You hit the time, too. I do remember Jared Jack. I believe he went to Georgia Tech, if I'm not mistaken. I remember him in college as well. But, yeah, he was the only quasi-bright spot in an otherwise dark era for Cavs basketball, that's for sure.
It's funny that we have those, like, little – like, for me, it was Andre Miller. I remember growing up, he was the Cavs star, but they were such bad teams. I mean, he was a stud, but we all have those names.
I did go to the Cavs' last playoff game or series before the LeBron era. We were playing the Pacers. We had Andre Miller, Z, and I think we had Fat Sean Kemp on that team. They didn't do much. The Pacers had Reggie Miller. It wasn't much of a series, but shout out Andre Miller. That's a good pull.
Yeah.
All right, Noah, you want to pop up the timer for me? We'll hit one more, and then we'll get into the topics.
100%. Let's do it, John. Go ahead.
All right, so I had a little bit of a hard time going with obscure player in a big sport or a big player in an obscure sport, so I picked two. There's a guy named Mason Unk who was like a wedge buster and special teams specialist for the Browns when we were awful. But every time he was on the field, he was always had his nose for the football and was making the tackles. So he's a Cleveland Brown. Nobody's going to know his name, but shout out Mason Unk. I don't know if chess is a sport, but I also said Magnus Carlsen just because he's dominant and a genius at chess.
Yep. So the power that went to his head is now gone because I still can mute him. Anyway, go ahead, John. You're back.
No, that's it. I think I got it all in. I didn't see when the host muted my mic, but I got it all out.
I gotta say, I wasn't expecting chess. But man, talk about fun. I don't know if fun's the right word, but memories of the wedge and special teams, how far it's changed in just a couple years.
Yeah.
Short kickoff this year. Short line kickoff. I'm so excited to see what that looks like on the NFL field. I know we've seen it, XFL, USFL, whatever the league. The UFL now, is that what it's called? I didn't watch it this year, to be honest. No, regardless, though, I'm excited to see what that looks like with the premier football players doing what should be a more exciting kickoff rule, since we were talking special teams.
I don't want to derail us too much already, but are you guys in favor of the the conversion instead of an onside kick? It's like 4th and 25 or whatever.
We could talk about this real quick. I don't mind, John, if you don't mind.
No, let's do it.
We'll talk real quick. We'll keep this 60-second takes. Yes and no. Yes, because I think it gives it more of a chance to happen and be safer. But no, because no, you know what? I'm yes. Why not? Let's change up the game. Now that I'm thinking about it, yes, I'm for it. Why not? It's a drop in the bucket to still happen. But if it happens, it's exciting. 4th and 25. Let's run 4 verts.
Yeah, I don't mind it. The purists are going to hate on it. This reminds me, not because it's the same rule, but just of like starting extra innings with a runner on second base where people go batshit crazy, but it actually makes it more interesting, more fun, and faster. I don't think it's a bad idea. It's gimmicky a little bit, but without ruining the game. I mean, it's not like guys are recovering onside kicks 50% of the time. It's a relatively rare play with very low success. Yeah, line it up and run a 4th and 25. I can get behind that.
I think that's the people's hesitation is that it would be a higher percentage probably converting that than an onside kick.
Yeah, I wonder. We'll have to get into that in another show because I would bet if I was a coach and you said you could pick, I would go onside kick and feel like I have a better chance of recovering that than 4th and 25. That's a lot of yards.
How about we table it and use this as a topic potentially next week when the Browns hit Greenbrier, and we can talk a little bit more football then.
Sounds good.
All right.
In the meantime, let's get into our first topic. So as we all know, LeBron scored 40,000 points, and it got us talking behind the scenes about sports records, right? There's these records that are obscure that nobody pays attention to, but then there's the big numbers, right? Scoring 100 points in an NBA game, or how many rushing touchdowns or passing yards you have. So the first topic for tonight is, what is the most unbreakable sports record? I'll let you kick off the 30 seconds. So Noah, in your first role as non-host, why don't you get us started on our first topic?
Yeah, so I was sitting down and I was pretty adamant on one of these records being my answer until literally I was taking a shower maybe 15 minutes before me and you got on, John, and started talking about, hosting and flipping over so you could get your shot at it today, right? The answer in my mind automatically when I think about this, right, is the 100-point record that you alluded to. It was done, I forget what year, I don't have it pulled up right this very second. And we've come relatively close, the Kobe game, but even then it was still 19 points away. And with the amount of, pure athleticism entering the NBA now, I just don't see it happening. But then I remembered another NBA record as I was in the shower and as I was thinking about our topics and getting juiced up to go on tonight. And not just in the NBA, but in general, a record I don't think we will ever see be broken is 8 championships in a row by the Boston Celtics from 1959 to 1966. I just don't think even when you have these dynasties, think of the Patriots, think of, Golden State when we were playing Golden State. There's always going to be one team, I feel like, with the amount of talent and the amount of athleticism, like I alluded to earlier. I don't see that one ever going 8 championships in a row. That's bad for TV. I'd be bored of it. I think you'd all be bored of it, unless it was Cleveland. Of course, we're going to go crazy in the streets and have 1 million fans running around crazy. But I just don't think you will ever see that record be broken, because it happened in a time when the leagues were smaller, there was less athleticism, that kind of thing. That's my answer. I would love to hear what you guys have to say, though.
Yeah, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, well, in regards to what Noah said, I don't know. When I tackled this, first of all, I have a lot to list because I couldn't choose one. But I thought about those particular things, at least Wilt's record, not necessarily the Celtics. With Wilt, I tend to agree with you. I don't think it's going to be broken. But Kobe having 81 and the modern game having the 3 ball, and who knows, maybe eventually they introduce a 4-point shot. I know there's been discussion around that with kind of how the range has been extended now. That's what makes me go, I don't know, maybe, when you see what Steph Curry can do in like 72 seconds to change a game, guys like that, I feel like they could have a shot at a record. Obviously, he's a little older now, and I'm not saying him specifically, but I just think the game's changed so much. In terms of the 8, you're probably right there. I mean, I can't imagine that being broken. Golden State's probably the best example. If KD doesn't leave, if that team stays healthy and that core stayed together, could they have pushed for 8? I don't know. They were tough to beat, but I still don't see them winning 8. That seems like such an impossible number.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, so what was your official answer? What did you have written down then?
So the ones that I have written down, not necessarily in any order. John mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but Wayne Gretzky, I mean, that's no way that will ever be broken. He has the most points total. And John pointed this out when he was talking about it. If you take away his goals, he still has more assists than the second person's highest points. That's just insane. It's one of those stats that's kind of mind-boggling to put your head around.
Yeah, you'd have to have 100 assists a year for 20 years to even to start flirting with it. That's a Herculean task.
Yeah, there's no way that gets broken. Ricky Henderson's 1,400 steals, 1,406. Second place right now is at 938. And the way the game is now, I just don't see that being broken ever. That one's impossible. This could be, but it's one of my favorite ones, Cal Ripken's consecutive game streak, which was 2,632 games. That's tough, man. I mean, to not miss a game in that time, that's unbelievable. I don't know what second place is at, but I know it's nowhere near. I have to shout out Chelsea because I'm a huge Chelsea fan. They had the best defense in one season where they only allowed 15 goals in the entire season.
How many games they play in that season?
Well, how many games are in a Premier League?
Roughly. If it's more than 16, I'm even more impressed.
There are 38 matches.
Oh.
On average now, well, back then and now, this is like 2 to 3 goals per match is the average.
Yeah.
And they let in 15. And keep in mind, this is a record. I'm not talking like when Chelsea was founded in 1902. I'm talking, this is the modern game. This is, I believe it's when, if I'm not mistaken, it's when Jose was coach. So this is like within the last 20 years, which is a pretty amazing stat. But my favorite by far and my answer has got to be Tiger Woods' #1 ranking. I talked about it when I talked about Tiger being the greatest athlete, but he was ranked #1 for 683 weeks. And last time I checked, there are 52 weeks in a year, which equates to just over 13 years. as the number 1 ranked golfer. That's insane to even be in the picture for 13 years, but to be ranked number 1 that whole time, that's a record that's going down that will not be beat.
It's wild when you think about it. And just to add a few, you guys did a great job of listing some of the ones. I don't disagree with any of those. Some others that I came across when I was researching. Emmitt Smith, over 18,000 rushing yards. Derrick Henry has about half that, and nobody runs the ball anymore. That's going to be tough to break. We talked about Gretzky. Wilt has another one that I think is even more unbreakable. I think LeBron's last game, when everybody's passing the ball, if Kobe got 80, we could see 100. I'm not betting on it, but I think it's attainable. Wilt averaged 50 per game for a season. Doing it once is one thing. 50 a game for a season. Harden hit 36 once. I think he's number 2, so he's got a long way to go. I believe the UConn women's basketball team won 111 straight games at one point. I don't see a bunch of teams rattling off 4 years of, well, maybe 3 years. I have to do the math there, but 111 games is 111 games no matter when they occur. Phelps and 28 Olympic medals is going to be tough too, although I think that's breakable. My answer is one where I think about not only is the record ridiculous, but it's also the change of the game. Like I alluded to before, Derrick Henry being half of the way to Emmitt Smith's record because now we don't run the ball like we used to. It's not so much that we don't have backs that good. I just don't see a running back getting enough carries to get 18,000 yards. Swinging for the fences every time, striking out 3 times a night is going to make it really hard to get to DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. We've had guys in Cleveland who have gotten to 20 before. Quan comes to mind as a guy who has the skill set to do it, but 56 in a row is pretty ridiculous as well. But honestly, if I'm thinking about all the sports and all the records, the one that I just don't think will ever be touched, never even sniffed. We've seen greats in hockey. The total points for Gretzky, when he already leads the list just on assists, we've had Jagr, we've had Ovechkin, we've had Crosby, we've had Gordie Howe before. There's so many great hockey players who are miles from this record. I just don't think there'll ever be anybody like Gretzky on the ice. I don't think Emmitt Smith's will fall either, and I'd be real surprised if any college basketball team can string together 111 straight. But I'll go with Gretzky for number 1.
You know what?
I knew you were gonna go hockey just based off of how some of our conversations have gone the last couple episodes. That's just my thought. Eric, I'm sorry I cut you off. Go ahead, man.
Here's the thing, though. Like, Wayne Gretzky was clearly the greatest hockey player ever. I mean, he is the GOAT. But I had to preface because the game's changed in the sense that athletes in general are better and more athletic now. When you're in the 2000s, I mean, look at LeBron and what he's been able to do. Part of that is longevity and how modern science are helping these athletes. I mean, he's notorious for using cryotherapy to keep his body in line or whatever. I think it makes it tough to compare across sports sometimes, but also when you have a hockey team that you're playing against that have, it's not farm leagues anymore. And I'm not saying it was back then, but like DiMaggio is a good example. Most of the baseball players that played during DiMaggio's time could not play against the players that play now. It's a different time. It's a different era. And how could those records be broken when they were the stud? That doesn't mean they're not the GOAT, but you have a lot of really good athletes around them now.
Yeah.
One record I wanted to shout out because we are a Cleveland podcast after all, gentlemen. Joe Thomas, 10,363 consecutive snaps. As an offensive lineman, I could see that one not being snapped, for a very, very long time. But that's just me.
Just throw that out there. It's there. It's here in the office. You know what's another crazy one? Is my other love, tennis. Shout out to Alcaraz getting his second straight Wimbledon title again over Djokovic. Pretty crazy. But there was a tennis match, the longest ever, and I don't think this will be beat. which was 11 hours and 5 minutes.
Holy shit.
11 hours.
Do you know who was in it?
I do not. But to put that in perspective, I talked about Gertrude Ederle earlier. When she crossed the English Channel, that took her 14 hours and 34 minutes. Can you imagine doing anything, let alone swimming in rough water, for over 14 hours? And the modern record, by the way, which was set by a man, is a little over 7 hours, which is still insane. I mean, insane.
Just doing the same thing for 7 hours is crazy to me. I can't wrap my
Let
head
alone
around
like
that.
a physical taxing
Right.
activity. I've played tennis. The longest I've probably played around 5 hours of tennis. And you feel it the next, I was going to say day, but you feel it the next week. I cannot imagine. And I'm not playing at a professional level. I mean, 11 hours for tennis, 14 hours in the water. It's insane. These athletes are they're built different.
Yeah, they are. It's wild to watch because some of these people too, when we talk about it with the dedication to their craft and what you have to do, like before we even get to the ridiculous records, some of the stuff that they do that's just on the regular is nuts. Like I'm watching the Olympic qualifying. Distance runners are putting down 4-minute and 40-second miles.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that for a mile if I trained for the next 5 years, and they're doing it for like dozens of miles. It's pretty mind-blowing. Yeah, swimming the English Channel is not on my list of things to do before I die either. 8 hours of swimming would take me probably 2 days, but yeah, man, some of these records, and you guys brought up some good ones too. Like just because we didn't pick something and put it at the top of the list, it doesn't mean that I see somebody breaking LeBron's record anytime soon either. Like I think it's attainable, but 40,000 plus points is going to be there for a while.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
All right. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. One more note. The thing that sucks is we talk about generational players. LeBron's a generational player. But there are a lot of generations that are going to come after us. So who knows? I mean, we can't conceptualize what a freak someone else could be because we've seen it. But what's to stop a guy like the shape of Wemby or the height of Wemby, but more muscle coming in and absolutely dominating for 25 years? We don't know.
Wemby in like 3 years, basically.
Maybe.
Right.
There was a WNBA player that was, I think she was like 7'3", and sadly she died at like 39. She had a heart attack. You know, being big just takes its toll. But there's pictures of her like with Michael Jordan, and she just towers over NBA players, and it's wild.
I couldn't have even fathomed 20 years ago that I'd be sitting and doing sports talk with two of my buddies because no podcast and little internet. And here we sit. So time change. I'm going to make that the last word on this topic. We're going to take a quick break for commercial. We got to pay a few bills, but we will be right back with more of the East Bank Sports Show at the Office Edition after this word from our sponsors. All right, and welcome back to the East Bank Sports Show at the Office Edition. Before I go on, don't forget, check out the other guys at the Fanatical Elves. They have some great content, too. It's not just the three of us. We got Lou, Noah on his show on Friday, Jarrell, Sam, Steve, the other John. We got some great people. We got some great shows. We got some great content. Share the love with them. Be sure to go ahead and check them out. But with that being said, let's get into our next topic. So we've talked about this before. In the age of 24-hour news cycles, social media, people being more accessible than ever. We talked a little bit about this even with Caitlin Clark a couple weeks ago. The question is, should athletes be role models? We've hit on this tangentially in the past. We've never discussed it directly. I'm anxious to hear what you guys have to say about it. Since Noah kicked us off last time. Erik, why don't you get us started on this one?
Yeah, so again, I can't give you a straight answer on this one because there's nuance here. This topic kind of stemmed from Charles Barkley's comments, if you guys recall, talking about how athletes aren't role models, stop looking up to us kind of thing. Obviously, he's in the news every other week for something he said. Here's the thing. Can athletes be role models? Yes, absolutely. I think that they can and oftentimes are. But do I think we should teach our kids to idolize athletes as role models? No, absolutely not. First of all, if and when I have kids, I don't want the pinnacle of who they look up to be as people, to be athletes just because they're good at a sport. I don't think that makes any sense from a cultural standpoint. I don't think it makes any sense from what we're trying to teach our kids to be and who they should look up to. And sometimes there are athletes that they transcend sports, right? The person that came to mind as soon as I said that was Muhammad Ali for me. Sometimes there are athletes that make it bigger than the sport. But if I had kids, which I don't, they're little brats that whine and take all your money. But if I had them, John's like, I know, I can't say it out
John,
loud, but I know.
that's right, right.
But if I had them, you know, obviously I would play sports with my kids. I would hope that they play sports. You know, I wouldn't force it, but I love sports, so I'd want to see that out of them. And I think it does it evolves your character to be on a team and to learn how to play with others. Sports is really good for people in general. But there's a big caveat, and that is, I really want my kids to know more so, if not at least the same, the names of famous scientists that, what about Marie Curie, who changed the game when it comes to women in science? Or maybe if my kid's really good at math, which if they're coming from me, they probably won't be, but maybe there's a famous mathematician, maybe Einstein they look up to, et cetera, right? There's so many role models out there and that are available. I think Tim, shout out, yeah, leeches for sure, our kids. There's just so many good available role models this day and age. Picking an athlete, I'm not sure that's the way to go. And just one more note on it. There's a culture around professional athletes, and that culture is money and fashion and chains and fast cars and et cetera, et cetera. It seems like a lot, I'm not saying all athletes, but a lot of athletes, most athletes, they play the game of keeping up with the Joneses. And they're able to do that because they're multi-million-dollar athletes until they get out and they realize just how far their money goes. A lot of them, unfortunately, waste it. But I don't want that particular brand of humanism to be what my kids are looking up to. I don't want them to be like, hey, I want to go get a chain and wear Gucci and all this crap, because that's not what matters in life. And that's not what I would stress to my kids. So should athletes be role models? If they want to be, that's great. But I think they need to live up to that role model image if they're going to be. And to do that 24/7, that's a tough ask. So I don't know. The problem is social media has changed everything. It's ruined everything.
Social media has ruined a lot. I'm going to jump in here because in a rare moment, I disagree with almost everything you said. Life is not about Gucci and chains and keeping up with the Joneses. You're right about that. Two things can be true at once. My kids are my pride and joy and the accomplishment of a lifetime. And if I do nothing else right, they mean everything to me. There are also mooches who take all my money. So two things can be true at the same time there too. But I think there's something in the disagreement that comes down to semantics or wording. When I think role model, I think somebody who you can admire, look up to, and learn from. I don't think perfect. If you're looking for a perfect role model, you're going to have a really hard time. Whether that's your parents, because there are bad parents and people who aren't great moms and dads, whether that's politics, whether that's Marie Curie, maybe she had a cocaine habit. She was just brilliant scientist. Like everything I'm making that up, by the way. Everything somebody does doesn't necessarily have to be good for them to be a good role model. I don't push my daughters to do much of anything other than, be respectful, be on time, not be assholes, and care about other people. I try to let them find their own way. So I would not push them to look to athletes. But if they look to athletes, it's the point that I made to you off air, Erik. It's not so much like look up to Caitlin Clark because she's got money and she's a basketball player. It's look up to Caitlin Clark because in the history of sports, women haven't mattered and now they do. And she pushed forward and did something. So now that people who look like you, my kids, are having success, that's an inspiration. Obama winning the White House, Jackie Robinson in baseball. These are some people who mean a lot to me. I just think you have to be a little bit careful. When I think about the impacts that sports have on social interactions in society, is Jesse Owens or Michael Phelps or Lou Alcindor / Kareem or Muhammad Ali or Serena Williams or Shaq's philanthropy something to aspire to and look up to? Yeah. Now, are there knuckleheads everywhere? Sure. If Antonio Brown or Ja Morant is your current pick, it's a tough look, right? You might want to move on from them. But the other piece of this that I disagree with is in thinking through the fact that humans are imperfect people, it's that even when people fall, it's a good lesson. If you have parents who get divorced, you still learn because you know what maybe you don't want to do in your marriage, for instance. So Kobe Bryant can be a role model, not only for his dominance on the court, his commitment to his craft, but for how he bounced back from what happened in Colorado. Michael Vick, it's one of my favorite redemption stories in the history of sports. He was a great quarterback before. He fell completely and totally from grace, was an absolute pariah, and came back. He learned, he got better. In life, I think what we're trying to do is just keep learning and getting better, and that the comeback is better than the setback. Americans love a good comeback story. Now, if my girl said name 5 people to look up to and you can't change the list, I wouldn't load it with 5 athletes. There are definitely some people who are not worth our admiration. But if my oldest daughter, she was born on December 30th, which is also Tiger Woods' birthday, which is also LeBron James' birthday. And since she was born and started watching sports, we've gone back and forth on whether or not these people are folks to admire, right? Tiger Woods backing out of the driveway, LeBron with the decision, very different from a moral standpoint, but still not the best look in the world. So I think we got to look at these people, realize they're human. They're a microcosm of Americans and of people in general. Hard work, dedication to your craft, learning and getting better at every turn is great. And sometimes people do a really good job and get it right. There's not a lot of people with bad things to say about LeBron and Tom Brady. So, unless your number one person on your list is like Jesus, I don't know who you're going to find who's perfect. Politicians, actors, entertainers, music, influencers, even parents. I think sports figures and athletes definitely can be role models. You just have to proceed with caution, and sometimes they let us down, and you can learn from that too.
No, you
So
make really good points. I think my issue is, and sorry, Noah, my issue is how much we put them on a pedestal. And I don't just mean athletes, I mean celebrities, et cetera, in general. We place them on a pedestal like this should be your idea of role model, when reality is so much different. Our kids are not going to be professional athletes. They're not going to be the next big actor. I think we oversell the American dream sometimes in that you can do anything you want. Maybe this is the cynic in me after a presidential assassination attempt and January 6th and a million things in life in general. But we place such high standards in regards to these people that they're there to entertain us.
I think if you told your kids you can't be an athlete, you can't be an actor, you won't be the next president.
Well, I would never say that, but
I was like, it's good that you don't want kids, because that is not the way to go about it.
Of course, I would raise them to be anything they want to be, but the next blockbuster Tom Cruise, it's not going to happen.
Glad Tom Cruise's parents didn't tell him the same thing. Noah, ring in here.
Right. No, yeah. First of all, you're very cynical. I don't get why you are against, letting people live up and try to go for their dreams. I think there's twofold to this.
That's not
question,
quite
right?
what I said, but go on.
That's what I took out of what you said. Okay.
So I think there's listen these days.
Right. Oh, here we go. I could still date you guys, even though I'm not playing host today. So I took, when I was, doing my research for this topic and everything, I took a page out of John's book because, we're switching roles here. So I might as well pull out the Wikipedia and the dictionary, the definitions and all that. A role model is a person looked to by others as an example to be imitated. Now, Erik, I get what you're saying. We shouldn't put some of these people on pedestals like we do. That completely makes sense to me. However, if John's daughter wants to be the next, best basketball player ever, and she's in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, whatever grade, yet she should 100% look up to Caitlin Clark, because Caitlin Clark is a walking example of not only how you can become the best women's basketball player, not saying that she is yet, or that's a whole nother debate, but also putting the sport on the map. That's one facet of this, right? So I agree to that. But the other facet of this goes back to what you said, Erik, right? Which is interesting to me, because I was going to bring up Charles Barkley as well, where the whole Nike campaign and what he said with, I'm not a role model. I think there should be something there as well. If the athlete doesn't want to be a role model looked up to in this way, they should have a say in it. It shouldn't be, granted, I wasn't alive when Charles Barkley and all that went down, but if Charles Barkley wants to come out and say, I'm not a role model, that shouldn't be controversial. He should be like, I want to be a basketball player and do my thing. I don't want, a million kids looking up to me and having the weight of, being a good person all the time when I'm in my 20s and want to smoke and drink and do everything you do when you're in your 20s. You know what I mean?
So
that's my thought.
A little bit of context.
Super quick, Noah, you threw in the age thing. When you said, I can't imagine doing anything for 7 hours, you damn Gen Z, I was like, yeah, you can. You could sleep or probably play on your phone for 7 hours. I just had to get in an age dig before Erik goes.
I'll gladly get on NCAA 25 right now and log off if you guys are ready to wrap this up. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Erik.
Listen, first of all, you guys took everything I said out of context, because I said that people can transcend sports. And then John says, well, what about Jackie Robinson? And Noah says, well, Caitlin Clark's changing the game for women. I just said they can transcend sport because it's bigger than the sport. Yeah, that was my first point. My second point, I kind of lost in the midst of that aggressiveness.
Let me ask you this. Why can't we look up to a LeBron James? LeBron James, I mean, like the story of LeBron James, we could go even smaller. Why can't a kid look up to, I don't know, a Darius Garland, who's like, he's a great basketball player.
Let me explain why. For me, it's a socioeconomic issue. So you have guys like Ja Morant, who made it out of a bad situation. Well, kind of, he's still fucking up, but made it out of a bad situation. You have these kids that grew up extremely poor, and their only way out was through sports. They don't have much home to return to. They had bad home life, bad parents. They were pulled between doing drugs and selling drugs. And I'm not making a generalization here on purpose, but my point is, so many of these athletes are looked up to because they are a rags from riches story. And I just think that that's really dangerous sometimes, because yes, that was how they got out of that situation. And that's amazing. God bless them for that. But the kids that are looking up to them that are in that similar situation, that's not how it's going to work for them. And so instead of focusing on, if I nail the ACT, this sounds so weird and so nerdy, but if I nail the ACT or I study harder, I can pull myself out of this poverty circle that continues on and on and on. Instead, they look to Ja Morant and like, hey, he did that. I could play basketball. That's my ticket out. And when it doesn't happen, we have this cyclical effect that continues. And I just think that it's a bad precedent to make.
I think you're overlooking two key things with that point, though. It's not that you make a bad point, because looking to Ja Morant and saying you could have those chains in that Bentley, just keep playing basketball, isn't the message. The message is, look at what it took for LeBron to be LeBron. Look what it took for Serena to be Serena. They started when they were 4. They ate, slept, and breathed these sports. They worked tirelessly for 18 hours a day, Saturdays and Sundays included, for 20 years of their life to achieve what they got. If you want to be the next Caitlin Clark, you need to put in this kind of work into it. And if you wake up every day and run at 5 a.m. and you're the first person and the last person out of the weight room, and you're putting up 1,000 jumpers every day for your life because you love basketball more than anything, you can be Caitlin Clark. The second thing that you're missing is if, God forbid, you can't be Caitlin Clark, it's really, really good to get 80% of what she had still for these kids and these people who look up to these athletes. So let's say you're looking at John Morant and you want to be John Morant and you put in the work to be John Morant, and all you get is a half scholarship to UCLA to play basketball. That's pretty freaking good for somebody trying to pull themselves up on by their own bootstraps. So when I look at these people and say, not only is there a blueprint for success, but you can apply it to everywhere that you work. If you love LeBron growing up, but now you're in law school, work like LeBron did at basketball, at law, at studying, at passing the bar, at being a litigator. If you put forth that effort, you can say, these people got what they wanted out of life because they worked really hard. I'm going to follow that blueprint because it's worth looking up to them because they put in the work, they had the determination, and when people were telling them they couldn't do it, they overcame. It's not about you can actually be John Morant, my kid. The odds of that are very low. But can you glean something from his success that makes you more successful as a person, as an athlete, and an individual? You bet your ass there is. I think every single one of these, even the knuckleheads, Antonio Brown had to work his ass off to be a pro football player. Just because he's an idiot doesn't mean he didn't earn it.
And nobody's doubting that. Hold on real quick, no, because nobody's doubting that. But the point you made just came from a 37-year-old perspective, and not from a kid. They're not going, man, look at all that work LeBron put in. That's not what they see. We were kids. Did you look at that?
But that's not completely true either, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you grow up as a person when you're 16 and you were looking up to LeBron James since you were 6 or 7. Yeah, you might get bit more realistic in your mind and be like, oh, well, I'm not going to play in the NBA, but I still love basketball and I want to go to this NAIA school, get a half scholarship. It's a small school. I get to play the sport that I love and go ahead and get my degree and go get a good job and live a good life. There's a difference there. It isn't just, oh, well, LeBron equals greatest of all time, so therefore I look up to him and expect to be greatest of all time. That's not what a role model is, in my
First
opinion.
of all, is NAIA even scholarship eligible? I thought it was D1 only that get scholarships.
Yeah, so it's
not
D1,
NCAA.
D2. NAIA is a separate thing from NCAA, and they do partial scholarships for all of their athletes on their roster.
My point is, listen, I don't think this issue is black and white. I'm not saying they should never be a role model. I'm saying that the culture that we surround professional athletes with and the pedestal that we put, and it extends to celebrities too, actors, singers, whatever, is just one more so of toxicity than positivity.
Yep. And I'm gonna cut it off there, Noah. I want to hear what you got to say. We got one more topic to get to, but this is a good conversation for another day. Where we put athletes as a society, in my mind, is a different argument than whether or not once they're there, you should tell people to look up to them as a role model. But let's change gears a little bit. I hope you guys bring the passion. I hope you guys bring the same research, Noah, knowledge, and opinion, Eric, that we did for the last topic. We talked a lot about a lot of different leagues. Let's talk about which one's the best. Now, let's set the stage for a second before Noah tells you why NFL is best. This isn't what's your favorite or what's the best to watch, well, unless that's what it means to you. This is what is the best sports league. Not to tell you can't say NFL, Noah. Why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Yeah, and I'm pulling up some side notes real quick. My answer is not the NFL. In fact, it is the NBA.
Let's go.
I know I just spoiled it right away.
Need that air horn.
Okay, hold on one second.
I'm going to spoil it twice. It's the NBA for me too, but you go first.
You guys are both wrong, but go on.
He's going to say the Premier League, but let me get into it. So there's a lot of reasons why I think the NBA is the best league. Now, I know the NFL is like the most profitable and that, and the other. And of course, I'm partial to the NFL because football is my favorite sport. The NBA is the best league for a lot of reasons. You could start off by just saying, the player empowerment aspect of it, the ability to wear the color shoes you want and not having strict guidelines, and always been kind of that league to set the tempo first in terms of literally everything, whether it be renewing TV rights, whether it be what you get to wear, what you don't get to wear, alternate uniforms,
Jordan
Literally,
couldn't wear red, right? Like,
yeah, and then
40
they
years ago.
grew up. They were the first league to, the first
I'm just
American
making
league.
sure we know that.
Yeah.
You said they
No,
were always.
They're always the leader. They're at the forefront of this. I know you're correct about that.
Always for Noah's life. The kid's only 23 or something.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly always in mind. But then you think about all the other stuff that they have going on. The innovation. For what it is, the in-season tournament is an innovative thing. All-Star weekend in the playoffs, they're constantly tweaking it. I think it's the best All-Star weekend, or I'd put it up there with the MLB. You could argue that it's the best All-Star weekend out of all the American sports leagues, basically. The branding is the...
Didn't we do a topic where how are we going to change the NBA All-Star game because it sucks?
They all suck. At this point.
Go on.
They all suck at this point.
But you could argue game was pretty good, but keep going, Noah.
No, you could argue it. You talk about the branding, right? The branding is at an all-time high with all the different uniforms, different assets, different variations of logos that we do. Whether the City Connects sometimes suck and sometimes they don't, but we get a new jersey for each of the NBA franchises every year, and it's an event to unveil them. And then you talk about, basketball being a worldwide sport too. It's, one of the fastest growing sports out there. And it's more and more popular day by day. Obviously, it's nowhere compared to soccer, but in terms of longevity and reach, and 100% me being American and not caring much about soccer at all, because I know Eric's going to say the Premier League, and I hope he doesn't, but I think he's going to. I don't know. The NBA just does it best for me. Oh, and shout out the G League too. The G League's another great thing the NBA does. They have a good pipeline system with some bottom. Why are you so butthurt, Eric? No, do go ahead. I'll shut up. I'm ready to hear you.
No, please keep going. Please keep going.
For all my reality TV people out there, and I know there's not going to be a lot of overlap in this because this is a male-dominant show according to our metrics. Eric, you look like Rob right now with all the eye rolls from Love Island. So please go ahead. I'm ready to hear what you have to say.
I want to hear John's first since his is the NBA too.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat what Noah said because this whole host and not going first thing throws me for a loop because you read half my take. We're so aligned on this.
Well, I'll give you the little buddy.
Yeah, I'll give you the little pieces that I kind of thought of outside of what you hit because player individualism, the jerseys, the in-season tournament, trying to make the product better on court. To me, the best league is the place where the owners, players thrive and it's harmonious. And the NBA is the best far and away. And the NFL has the best on-field product, mostly because there's only 17 games. It's perfect for fantasy. They don't have to get through 82 games. And if the NBA does have a flaw, it's how to make 82 regular season games matter when 2/3 of the league is going to make the playoffs. But the NFL has CTE. They constantly screw players. If your socks aren't the right height, you're getting fined. The salary cap deflates salaries for players. Baseball's the other way. The players have too much control. They do whatever the hell they want. Teams like the A's have no shot in hell. Big markets get too much of an unfair advantage. There's way too many games, in my opinion. NBA players make crazy money. The league makes crazy money. The stars are international and not just domestic. It's a big piece of it. LeBron is the biggest athlete in the United States by far because nobody watches football and very few people watch baseball outside of the United States. NFL is king from ratings, and if we could wave a wand, though, and I could say, what league would you want to play in? It's either the PGA or the NBA, and the rest aren't even close. So I agree with everything you said, Noah. I would add the fact that the union and the relationship with the league is stronger, and the salaries are getting out of control, which is great for players. It's not much the NBA is doing wrong right now.
All right, Eric. Let's roll the eyes back in.
He's going to say live golf.
Live golf.
What is the best sports league? So listen, I did not pick the Premier League, although I do think that the Premier League could be up there in terms of viewership, in terms of money. They do the same thing with jerseys, which are called kits in soccer. You get 3 new ones a year, not just one. There's a lot of drama there. There's a lot of The trade block each summer is always fascinating. But I did not pick the Premier League. I did indeed pick the NFL. Listen, what, are you shocked?
Yeah,
Yeah,
literally.
I
All right, well, hear me out. You guys keep saying, first of all, you keep saying, well, if it were ratings, if it were money, well, it is all these things. So I took at it as, what is the best league? First of all, it is my favorite league to watch. College football and NFL, that's my weekend in fall and winter. And it's not because there's a lack of anything else to do. I'd be doing that if it were herring in summer too. I don't know how you could pick a league other than the NFL when they literally own a day of the week. They, other than Jesus, who can say that? And they kind of stole it from him. NFL Sunday is more ubiquitous than Jesus.
Shout out
That's
to
insane.
Jesus. That's the second JC reference today.
I
Go
know. I
ahead.
just figured we'd keep it
Right.
going. It's a marketing behemoth. It's a ratings behemoth. Just when you thought it couldn't reach more of an apex, you bring in my girl Taylor Swift. She makes it even bigger. I mean, it is just such a cultural icon sport that a little bit it transcends America. I know the rest of the world doesn't care about the NFL at all, but the stars do get play in the rest of the world, and they are big stars. I'm not saying they're as big as LeBron. LeBron is probably the biggest star in all of sport, period. Maybe Ronaldo, Messi could touch that. But he's up there, and if you go to China, everyone knows LeBron's name too. But the NFL, I mean, from a marketing standpoint, think of the Super Bowl. It's one event that's watched by more than anybody, any other event. I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm pretty sure it's watched by more people than like the World Cup final. You'd have to fact check me on that one. But it's an event where brands, I'm an advertising guy, brands wait all year to spend $6 to $8 million for 30 seconds. That's insane. So from a watching standpoint, it's the most fun to watch. From a dollars and marketing perspective, it's by far the highest. From an advertising perspective and media perspective, they own a day of the week, and then they own the biggest event of the year. Everything leads up to that Super Bowl Sunday. And then they try to own other parts of the year with the draft and et cetera, et cetera. I just don't know how you can't pick them as best sports league. Now, I took it from a perspective of all of those things coming together as one, and not from a, are they best for the players? Do they have the best union? Well, no, of course not. It's modern gladiatorial combat. And there was, I think we talked about this before, but there was a really good 30 for 30 or the ESPN News, whatever those things were, E60, I think it's called, that broke down that it's basically modern day Rome. These white owners pitting these guys against each other in the arena, and it doesn't really matter who gets killed or whatever because the money's flowing in. So there is a moral aspect of it, but that's not how I approach the question. I think it's clear, though, the NFL's tops.
Yeah, so I disagree with you as the resident football guy. And John, I'm going to let you piggyback on me because I think we're on the same side here. So I love this. But I just don't think you can pick a league whose nickname for its acronym is the
No Fun League.
It is literally nicknamed the No Fun League. That automatically trumps every point you made, even though I agree with everything you said. And I think this is as volatile as a volatile subject can be. Because,
let me ask you both a question. This past season, did you guys miss any Cavs games? Were there any Cavs games that you didn't watch?
Yes.
Most of the home games I was there because I worked it. But yes, I did miss Cavs games for sure.
And I get it. It's a longer season. But do you have somewhere else to be, buddy?
Okay. He's no longer with us.
All right. I guess I'll ask this to John. Did you miss a single Browns game last year?
Nope. No, I did not. I'm back.
But that's a two. So I see what you're trying to do here, but it doesn't add up. That's like me saying, oh, you know why the NBA is better? Which league did you watch more games? Did you watch more Cavs games last year or Browns games? Well, obviously it's Cavs because they play 82 and not 17.
Okay, let's take the
Right.
games out of it then. I'm the devil. I just arrived from hell. And I'm telling you both that you can only have one Cleveland sports team now. I'm taking two away. They're never returning. Which one do you pick?
Between the Cavs and the Browns?
You get one Cleveland sports team.
That's not fair because
It's
my answer.
the goddamn Cleveland Browns, and we know it.
We went from shouting out Jesus Christ to saying goddamn on air.
But
Anyway,
that's why I was
listen.
careful when I set everything up to say this isn't what's your favorite. The Cleveland Browns are my favorite Cleveland sports team. The question
The NFL is my
what
favorite
is
league.
the best sports league, and that is not the same. And everything, frankly, that you said is true, but everything that you said is a marketing standpoint. You talked about money, you talked about ratings, you talked about games. You didn't talk about the fact that the players can't stand the owners. You didn't talk about the fact that the salary cap artificially deflates salary.
You think the NBA players like the owners?
The NBA players like the owners a whole hell of a lot more than the
You
NFL
think
players.
LeBron likes Dan Gilbert? Come on, listen. First of all, I know I was setting up straw man arguments there, but I know you're new at this hosting thing, John, but if you're going to do it, you're going to have to clarify on these topics then. You can't add addendums
He
after
clarified
the topic
when we
goes
started.
out.
Right off the bat.
Well, I had the
I
I had the topic like 72 hours ago. The topic was, which is the best sports league? Not with addendums after it.
Okay.
Well,
which is the best sports league, not which is the best at marketing.
By the way, hey, Tim.
Listen, I get what you're saying. Oh, okay. Whatever you say. There you go. Are you happy now? I get what you're saying, Eric, and I think there's definitely an argument to be had, even when me and John are like the no fun league and this, that, and the other, to say that the NFL is the best league because it's the most profitable. It does the best marketing dollars. Despite all of the headbutting between players, owners, et cetera, media, whatever, we all still tune in and watch it. That being said, the amount of problematic things that go on with the league, that go on with the sport of football, that I will openly admit as, again, the resident football guy, when you look at a league that is firing on all cylinders and trying, I think is the key word for me, trying to do the right by the fans, the players, the owners, blah, blah, blah. You can't go wrong with the NBA. I mean, even look at the bubble. We came up with a solution for one of the toughest times so the fans could still watch basketball, the players could still get played and win a championship, and the owners could still make money. We did that. They did that. I don't know why I'm claiming to be a part of the NBA. I'm not. They did that. The NFL would probably wipe their hands and be like, season ticket holders, it's going to your deposit next year, because I've heard them say that before.
I get what you guys are saying. When the Super Bowl's become an American holiday, when there's actual talk about making the Monday after a holiday, the NBA Finals average like 12.5 million viewers, something like that. The Super Bowl has like 90 million viewers. I mean, it's just 30 to 50 million international. It's just insane. It's two different. But they're in two different leagues, pun intended.
The question is not who's making the most money.
But that's got to be a factor in what is the best league.
The NBA is the second most popular league in the country, so they're still up there.
There's only like 3 of them,
and it's popular around the world too. That's the other thing. Nobody watches the NFL anywhere but here.
Tim, I agree with that.
Yes, we should push it back a weekend, and that way some people could have President's Day off on Monday, and then that way either it should be Super Bowl Saturday or we should have it on the next weekend.
I agree. I'm not saying they do it, Tim. I'm saying there's always been talk about making that a holiday.
100%, yeah.
Last word, E. What do you got?
Last ever on this topic?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I agree with you guys that outside of America and North America, no one gives a shit about the NFL. Where I disagree with that is that I think that's going to change. Obviously, there's a push into Europe, and that sport is going to continue to grow. Whereas I just don't know that the NBA will continue to grow at the same pace.
It probably won't. I think there's an argument to be had as to if you're thinking marketing and global appeal, why you wouldn't have just stuck with the Premier League and you went with NFL, because it is a worldwide league. But we're gonna have to leave it there because I'm the host and we got to get to our last take so we can get out of here. All right, fellas, good, candid, and hot topics and debates. What are you burning on? What's top of mind? What are your hot takes? Keep it spicy. E, go first.
Keep it spicy. All right, listen. I mentioned that Carlos Alcaraz won Wimbledon, which is very cool. He's such a good player, but I'm going to go on the record and say that I think he will win more majors than anybody, including Djokovic, who I think is done, actually. I think he just needs to hand over the torch. He had knee surgery. I get it. He just came back. It's amazing what he's doing. But when Carlos's game is firing, holy shit, is it firing. And guys have said that when Djokovic lost, he said, listen, this guy's serve was on today and he's just unbeatable. He makes these shots that look easy. It's like if you combine the three greats into one person, that's Carlos, and he's still young and he's still getting better and he's already winning everything there is to win. I think by the end of his career, barring like major devastating injury, he'll be the GOAT.
Love it. How about you, Noah?
Yeah, my hot take, I'm going to keep it real spicy today, is that Erik was completely wrong the whole episode. I had to come at you just because we butted heads pretty hard today. My hot
I'm
take
hosting this bitch next.
Here we go. Sure, when I asked if anybody else wanted to take host.
Hey, who volunteered first?
You, off the dot, and I loved it. You did a great job, John.
Let's go.
My hot take of today is going to talk about, the one thing that's been on my mind all week. No, not my girlfriend. No, not the looming NFL season. No, not the ice cream in the fridge. College football 25. Whatever. College football 25 is here. It has grabbed me by the throat and choked me, and I am just completely here for it. This game has been fantastic. I've been having an absolute blast. Yes, you can laugh at that joke. I know what that sounded like. It's okay. The game was fantastic. And, I've been loving it. And my hot take isn't really hot. It's going to be the game of the year. The sports game of the year is 100% going to be NCAA football 25.
I love it too.
Is Grand Theft Auto coming out this year? Because
I said sports game of the year.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Anyway,
I was like,
To wrap us up, my hot take is Ingrid Andress. I don't know if I'm saying her name right. I don't care. She was the worst national anthem singer in the history of North American sports by so far that I can't even think of another individual to put in her category. Fergie and Carl Lewis are so much better than what this lady did at the Home Run Derby. It is unbelievable. I've heard takes on the national anthem. Let's not even sing it before games because sometimes people kneel and it's controversial. Do you stand? Are you talking? People seem to fight over it and it's stupid anyway. The fight, not the national anthem. If we're going to play it, let's do it right. Let's think about why we're doing it. Let's think about the military and the people who have served and the people who represent the flag and who the flag represents, who have a passion about this, and put somebody out there who's going to sing the song like it's written. This was gross. It was like a cat yodeling while being choked underwater. I cannot explain to you, and I would say go look it up on YouTube, but don't. You'll thank me. Don't. This lady apparently was nominated for Grammys. I'm guessing it was either for lyrics or the stuff was in Braille because it's damn sure not her voice. It was awful. Sing the song, do it the right way, show some respect to the country and the flag, and let's play ball. I never need to see anything like that again.
Yeah, listen, when the national anthem plays, and I don't want to be on a soapbox too much for a second, but what's great about our country is and it's always been what's great about our country is what it can be. Not to get political or talk political sides, but It's always been that shining city upon a hill. And, one of my least favorite arguments that people bring up is when they say, well, if you don't like it, move. No, the whole point of our country and what we have is that if we don't like it, we can change it. And the epitome of that is when you're at a sports stadium in a game and they're playing the national anthem and the entire crowd is quiet with their hand on their heart and the jets sometimes are flying overhead. I mean, it gives me chills right now just thinking about it, and I'm not in the stadium. It's one of those things that we've talked a lot about, things that transcend sports. But think about that Yankees game after 9/11. These are things that do matter. And even if some sides try to co-opt it, this is America at its core. And you're absolutely right. It was a disgrace. And that shit apology was just as bad. I don't know how we don't do auditions for this, but it should be taken more seriously.
I appreciate it. We ended where we started, even though we disagreed for the better part of an hour. We're on the same line on the last topic. This has been a blast, Noah. Thanks for letting me host, brother. Thanks, E, for providing some spice in your takes. Thank you most to our listeners. Don't forget to like, subscribe, download, follow wherever you listen. But until next time, you guys take care. Be good to yourselves and each other in the worlds of Jerry Springer.